They joked about me before I even landed. My own kids. I had just buried my wife, and on the way home, all I wanted was one simple thing: someone waiting at the airport. Instead, they laughed at me in a text. My name is Thomas Carter. I'm 68 years old, still on my feet though my knees ache in the morning. A widower now, trying to keep steady after the hardest trip of my life. Sit back and let me tell you how my family thought I was a burden, and how I gave them a gift that shut every joke down cold. Before we get too far, don't forget to subscribe and tell me where you're listening from. The flight dragged on. My chest carried a weight I couldn't name. For the first time in years, I thought maybe it would be nice if someone waited for me at the airport. So I typed into the family chat, "Flight lands at 5. Can someone pick me up?" I hit send. I waited. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Finally, my son Mark replied, "We're busy. Try Uber." A minute later, Emma, my daughter, added, "Why didn't you plan better, Dad?" My fingers stilled on the screen. The words burned brighter than they should have. I typed, "No worries." That was all. I couldn't bring myself to type more. No one else replied. I slipped the phone back into my jacket and leaned against the seat. Outside, the wheels screeched against the runway, sharp and loud. The man beside me smiled with relief and said, "We made it." I nodded. I didn't tell him that my own family hadn't saved me a seat in their cars. The airport was crowded. Families hugged, held balloons, waved signs. A young woman squealed and ran into her father's arms. A boy carried his grandfather's bag while the old man ruffled his hair. Everywhere I looked, people met with smiles. No one waited for me. I carried my own bag. My knees trembled on the escalator. At the taxi line, I set the bag down and breathed heavy. A driver waved. I stepped forward. He loaded the bag without a word. On the ride home, I watched the city blur past. Neon signs flickered. The air smelled faintly of rain. The driver hummed to himself. My phone buzzed again. Another message in the family group chat. Mark again. "Don't forget, Dad, rent's due on the old place. Did you handle it?" I stared at the message. My thumb hovered. Then, I put the phone face down on the seat. The city lights glared off its screen like it wanted to blind me. When I reached home, the porch light still burned. I unlocked the door and stepped into the quiet. My wife's slippers still sat by the wall, the pair she wore every winter. I had left them there, couldn't move them yet. I carried my bag into the study. On the desk sat the wooden box. It had been there for years. My wife's handwriting on the front still clear. "Keep this for when the noise is too loud." I ran my fingers across the lid. I didn't open it, not yet. I made tea, poured it into a mug, and sat at the kitchen table. The steam warmed my hands. The silence pressed heavier than the flight. The next morning, the phone rang. It was Emma. "Dad, did you get home okay?" Her voice was light, almost distracted. "I did." "Good. Listen, about tonight, we're having friends over. You don't mind if we skip dinner, right?" I swallowed. "Of course." "Thanks, Dad. Love you," she said quickly, and the line went dead. I set the phone down. The mug of coffee beside me had gone cold. I went outside and trimmed the hedges until my arms ached. The clippings scattered across the grass like broken green glass. Neighbors passed. They waved. They asked, "How was the trip?" I smiled and said, "Fine." Inside, the house waited, quiet as always. 2 days later, Clara, my youngest, came by. She was different from the others. She carried soup in a pot and set it on the stove without asking. "You look tired, Dad," she said. "I am." She stirred the soup, her face tight. "Did anyone meet you at the airport?" "No," I said. Her jaw clenched. She didn't reply. She ladled soup into a bowl and set it in front of me. "Eat." I ate. It was warm, the first warm thing in days. When she left, she paused at the door. "Dad?" "Yes?" "You deserve better." The door clicked shut. I sat with the bowl half empty, my chest heavy. That night, the group chat lit up again. Mark. "Dad, could you transfer the money for Cal's tuition? Deadline's tomorrow." Emma. "And don't forget the house insurance renewal." Clara didn't reply. I typed nothing. I opened the wooden box instead. Inside lay papers, receipts from years past, mortgage payments I had made when Mark was between jobs, tuition bills I had covered when Emma was saving for a house, hospital bills I had paid for Clara when she had no insurance, letters my wife had written before she died, each one in her strong hand. I lifted the top letter. It read, "Thomas, if they forget who you are, remind them. If they mock, stay steady. If they take, keep your records. One day, the truth will be the gift." I folded it back and closed the lid. The weekend came. The family gathered for brunch at Emma's house. I was invited, but not expected. The table overflowed with food, waffles, bacon, fruit bowls. Laughter filled the air. Mark clapped me on the back when I entered. "Dad, you made it! Good! Listen, sorry about the airport thing. We were just swamped. No hard feelings, right?" "Of course," I said. Emma kissed my cheek and handed me a plate. "Eat up. You need it." The chatter rolled on. Stories about work, neighbors, promotions. They didn't ask about the funeral. They didn't ask how the soil felt when I lowered my wife's body into the ground. I chewed slowly, the waffle heavy in my throat. At one point, Mark raised his glass. "To Dad, the man who never complains. We give him a hard time, but he always bounces back." Laughter. I smiled, thin and polite. My hands stayed on my lap. Inside, the steady beat grew louder. When I got home, I sat in the study again. The wooden box waited. I unlocked the drawer, placed the key beside it, and whispered, "Soon." The elm tree outside hissed in the wind. The house creaked. My chest matched the sound. They had laughed at me. They had told me to try Uber after burying their mother. They had mocked me with Plan Better. They had remembered the bills, but not the man. But I remembered. And when I opened the box fully, when I unwrapped the real gift, they would remember too. I set my phone face down on the table and stared at the wood grain. The little lines looked like a river. They ran, bent, disappeared, came back. My eyes followed them because it was easier than looking at the screen. The kettle clicked off. I poured hot water over a tea bag and watched the color bloom. Steam fogged my glasses. I wiped them with my sleeve and took a slow sip. The cup warmed my fingers. The warmth felt like a hand. By noon, I needed milk and bread. I walked to the store 2 blocks away. The air had a bite. Dry leaves scraped along the curb like paper feet. Inside, the store lights hummed. The cold aisle blew a steady chill against my ankles. I turned into the bread aisle and stopped. Emma stood at the far end with 2 women I didn't know. She laughed and waved a baguette in the air like a wand. "So," he texts, "flight lands at 5. Can someone pick me up?" She said, big smile, eyes bright. And I'm like, "Dad, Plan Better. What else can you do? We were slammed." One woman giggled. "Dad's right." The other added, "Uber exists." They all laughed. Emma didn't see me. I stepped back into the next aisle and gripped the cart handle. My knuckles went white. I stood a long time by the cereal boxes and looked at cartoon bees. When I came out again, Emma was at the register. She turned, saw me, and blinked. "Oh, Dad, hey." Her smile felt small now, like it had lost air. "Hello," I said. "Do you need a ride?" One of her friends joked, then looked sorry when no one laughed. "I'm good," I said. I picked up milk and bread and left. Outside, the clouds hung low. A small wind pushed junk mail down the sidewalk. I carried the bag home and set it on the counter. I put the milk in the fridge, the bread in the box, my hands flat on the cool counter until the sting in my chest quieted. The group chat pinged again. Mark, "Dad, I'm dropping a few boxes at your place tonight. Clear space in the garage." I typed, "I'll be home." He replied, "Leave the back door open." I typed, "No, ring the bell." No dots appeared. No answer came. He came at 8 with his truck. The engine rumbled deep. The headlights washed across my living room wall. He thumped on the door with his fist. I opened it. He moved past me without hello. Boxes stacked high. "Where?" he said. "Against the far wall," I said. He set them down hard, the cardboard side. He straightened, wiped sweat with his sleeve, and looked around. His eyes paused on the wooden box in my study doorway. "What's that?" he said. "Old papers," I said. "Mom's?" "Ours," I said. He snorted. "You and your old stuff." He lifted another box and said over his shoulder, We're shooting a little thing on Saturday. You should swing by. Funny bit with the guys. I'll pass, I said. He shrugged. Your loss. He carried the last box in and set it on the pile crooked so it leaned. I fixed it after he left. When the door clicked shut, the house felt bigger. The boxes in the garage didn't bother me. The way he walked through my door like it belonged to him did. I went to the study and slid the box closer to the edge of the desk. I ran my hand over the lid. The grain under my palm felt like a steady road. I lifted the lid and looked at the top letter again. Keep this for when the noise is too loud. The noise was loud. I closed the lid and turned off the light. The next day, I trimmed the roses out back. The thorns snagged my gloves. A faint smell of earth rose up every time I pulled a dead stem. Mr. Jensen, across the fence, raised his chin in hello. He is my age. Thin as a rake, eyes like clear glass. Heard you traveled, he said. I did. He looked at the ground. I'm sorry. Thank you, I said. He leaned on his rake. If you ever need a ride, you knock. I get restless. I can drive anywhere for any reason. I'll remember, I said. The offer sat in the air like a clean towel laid over a chair. In the afternoon, Clara called. How are you? Holding, I said. Emma told me she saw you at the store, she said. She felt bad after. Did she? I said, and let it go. Dad, she said, softer, I won't pretend it's nothing, but if I tell her, she'll just defend it harder, so I'm calling you instead. Thank you, I said. Come to my place tomorrow, she said. Just for a coffee. I went. Her apartment smelled like soap and cinnamon. Cal sat at the table, drawing a crab in blue marker. He lifted the picture for me to see. Pinch, he said, grinning. Strong claws, I said. He nodded, proud. He went back to the page. Clara poured coffee. We sat. They posted the airport thing, she said. She looked at the steam rising from her cup. The whole chat. Not just the one from that day. Old ones, too. Where? I said. A cousins group, she said. Friends of friends. Screenshots. I told them to take it down. They laughed. I felt a heat in my face, hot like a stove coil. Send me what you have, I said. She texted me 3 images. The words were all there in gray bubbles. Try Uber. Plan better. We're busy. The little heart reacts under the worst ones made my throat close. Someone had typed LOL under my sentence. No worries, I could still see my thumb hitting send. Thank you, I said. She reached across the table and put her hand over mine. You don't deserve this. No one does, I said. On the way home, I stopped at the copy shop again. The bell clanged. The same young man with the nose ring was there. He glanced up and then straightened. Hey! 3 copies, I said, laying the phone down so he could see. Good paper. He nodded. The machine hummed. The gray bubbles became black ink. He slid them across to me in a clear sleeve. Need anything else? He asked. A small frame, I said. For a photo? For a sentence, I said. He blinked. I've got one left, he said, and pulled a simple wood frame from a shelf. The glass shone. He dusted it with his wrist and set it in a paper bag. No charge, he said. Charge me, I said. He shook his head. I didn't get picked up either once, he said. It doesn't go away. I paid for the copies and left the frame money on the counter. At home, I slid one of the screenshots into the frame. I put it face down on the desk. I'd flip it when it needed to be seen, not before. That evening, the church sent a message. We can host a small remembrance for your wife Sunday at 6. I had asked on Monday, then forgotten I asked. I typed back, thank you. I added, family will be there. I did not ask, I decided. I wrote in the group chat, Sunday 5 o'clock at my house, then 6 at church for your mother. Dots appeared. Emma, we have plans. Clara, we'll be there. Mark took 5 minutes. We'll try, he wrote. 2 words, no wait. I replied, no phones. Emma sent a question mark. Mark sent nothing. Clara sent a thumbs up. I set the phone down and made a list on an index card. Roast chicken, bread, water, chairs, frame, box. The card fit in my breast pocket like a thin stone. On Friday, I cleaned the house the way my wife liked it. I dusted under the lamp base, not just the shade. I ran the vacuum in straight lines. I wiped the table with lemon oil. The wood shone. The place smelled like our early years. At noon, the doorbell rang. Paul? No, that's work. Wrong story. I corrected myself in my head like I might fix a slip on a step. At noon, Mr. Jensen rang. He held a small potted plant with purple flowers. For the table, he said. My wife used to like these. I took it. Thank you, I said. Stay for tea? He shook his head. I make a bad guest, he said. I always stay too long. I'll see you from across the fence. He walked away, back straight, steps careful. I set the plant in the center of the table. The purple looked brave. I opened the box. I laid out papers on the bed in the spare room in tidy rows. Receipts, letters, photos. I put sticky notes with one-word labels in my handwriting. Rent, tires, school, surgery, fund, house. I placed the framed screenshot last, face down, a little to the side. I made 3 piles in separate folders, one with Emma's name, one with Mark's, one with the word all. I put the 2 name folders back in the box and kept all on the bed. I paced once around the room. The carpet made no sound. Saturday morning, I sent one more message. Reminder, tomorrow. Mark replied, got it. Emma sent a thumbs up. Clara sent a heart. That afternoon, I stood in the garage and looked at Mark's boxes. One was open a little. A roll of tape had slid half out. I pushed it back in. My hand brushed the tape blade. It bit my skin and left a thin line. Bright red bubbled up and sat there. I wiped it with a rag and watched the spot go to pink. A small cut. A body saying, you feel. On Sunday, the sky went the color of a soft stone. No sun, no shadow. The air had that quiet before a storm, even when no storm comes. I roasted chicken. The skin turned golden. The grease popped. I put bread in the oven and listened to the crust crackle as it cooled. At 5, Clara and Cal arrived first. Cal carried a small notebook. For writing, he said, in case I need to remember. You will, I said. I meant it as a promise, not a threat. Emma came at 5:15 alone. She slipped her phone into her bag when I looked at it. No phones, she said. I remember. Thank you, I said. Mark came at 5:20, Emma with him now. No, she was already there. Emma's there, so he came only with his son? No, his son is Clara's. I checked my own mind like a list. Mark came alone. He held his keys like a fist. His jaw moved as if chewing nothing. Let's make it quick, he muttered. We have to be at the church at 6. We will, I said. We sat, we ate. The chicken was tender. The bread tore in soft lines. The room felt full and empty at the same time, like a train car with only one other person in it. When the plates were pushed back, I stood, carried the box in, and set it on the table. I placed the all folder on top. I left the frame face down. No phones, I said. No one reached. I opened the folder and slid out 3 pages. The funeral bill, the flight receipt, the text where I wrote, flight lands at 5 p.m. Can someone pick me up? I put them side by side like a short path. No one spoke. The kettle clicked off in the kitchen. It was too far to matter. Still, I heard it. Little sounds carry when a room is tight with bigger ones. I slid out another page, a list in my hand. Dates down the left, simple descriptions down the right. No long lines, no speeches. 1989, roof. 1996, braces. 2008, surgery. 2014, rent. 2016, rent. 2018 next, school fund. I said it with the others. Why? Emma whispered. Because I was asked then, I said. And because I knew one day I would not be. She pressed her lips together. Her eyes filled. She looked down at her hands. Mark stared at the table. He tapped a finger, 1, 2, 1, 2, like a drum no one else could hear. This is guilt theater, he said, trying to make his voice hard and finding it soft. This is paper, I said. Paper talks when people won't. I flipped the frame over and slid it between the bills and the list. The glass caught the light. The words under it stood up taller. We're busy. Try Uber. Why didn't you plan better? No worries. Cal read it and looked away fast. He is young. He still knows what shame feels like without being told. Emma covered her mouth. "Dad," she said, voice small, "I'm sorry." Her shoulders shook once. Mark's face flushed high and then went pale. "You're gonna show this at church?" he snapped. "No," I said. "Church is for your mother. This is for here." I tapped the table. "This is where we do our talking." He looked relieved and angry at the same time. "Then what is tonight?" he said, almost pleading. "If you're not putting us on blast in front of everyone, then what is this?" "A map," I said. "To what?" "To the last thing," I said. "What last thing?" I closed the folder and slid it back. I took 2 smaller folders from the box and set one in front of Emma, one in front of Mark. Their names in my hand looked like they did on birthday cards. I pushed them forward an inch. "What's this?" Emma asked. "Open at home," I said. "Why not now?" Mark said, suspicious, spreading his palms. "Because home is where you will decide who you are," I said. "Not here, not in front of Clara, not in front of me, not in front of your mother's plant." He darted a look at the purple flowers in the middle of the table, like he had not noticed them. He swallowed. "We have to go," Clara said, glancing at the clock. "Church." I closed the box and carried it to the hall. Cal hopped down and grabbed one handle like he was helping carry something important at a parade. We set it by the door. As we walked out, I turned the frame face down again. The glass made a soft slide sound on the wood. That sound felt like a door closing gently between rooms. At church, the air smelled of wood polish and old hymnals. People whispered and hugged. Photos of my wife sat on a small table near the front. Her in a blue dress, her in the garden, her holding a baby with both hands pressed to her chest like she was trying to keep the baby's laugh from floating away. Candles flickered. The flame made tiny snaps as the wick drank. We sat in the front row. The pastor kept it short. He said her name the right way. He didn't say she was perfect. He said she was kind in small ways, steady in storms, and that kindness and steadiness still walked around this town and other people's legs. I liked that. Then he said, "If anyone wants to share, you can." He looked at me. He didn't push. Clara stood. Her voice shook but did not break. "She taught me to rest the bread twice," she said. "Once before the oven and once after." She smiled. "It makes a difference." Emma stood. "She taught me to hide the money I'd need in the winter, in the summer when I felt rich." She gave a small, wet laugh. Mark sat still. He did not stand. I rose last. I walked to the front with nothing in my hands. My steps sounded loud on the wood. I turned and looked at the room. I looked at my children. "She taught me to write things down when they hurt," I said, "because pain makes your head forget what is true. She told me to keep a box for when the noise is too loud." I took a breath. I did. No one moved. That was enough. When it ended, people hugged us. Mr. Jensen patted my shoulder with a hand that trembled. A woman I didn't know pressed a note into my palm that said, "I remember her laugh." In the parking lot, Mark stood by his car and looked at me like a boy at the first day of school. He held the small folder by his side like he could hide it with his thigh. "You're not going to embarrass us?" he said. "With the box?" "I'm going to give you one more chance to be who your mother wanted," I said. "That is all." He nodded once. He unlocked the car. He sat inside a long time before he started it. At home, I sat in my chair. I poured tea. The surface trembled and then calmed. At 9, a message pinged. "Emma." I opened the folder. "I'm sorry again." A minute later, "We'll talk tomorrow?" I typed, "Yes." No message came from Mark. At 10, "Clara, he's reading." I sent back a heart I didn't know how to send before. The phone taught me. I slept hard and woke before dawn. The street was quiet. A cat crossed from one yard to the next with its tail high. The elm was black against a white sky. At 7, the doorbell rang. Mark stood on the step, pale, eyes red like they had been rubbed too hard. He held the folder with both hands. The edges were soft now. "Can I?" he said and didn't finish. "Come in," I said. He sat at the table and set the folder down like a plate. He pushed it an inch toward me, then pulled it back, then pushed it again. He opened his mouth. He closed it. He took a long breath. "I'm sorry," he said. It came out dry, like a leaf. He tried again. "I am sorry." I looked at his face a long time. I nodded once. "Do better," I said. "I will," he said. He rubbed his eyes with his thumb and forefinger. I didn't know you kept all that. I didn't keep it to use it, I said. I kept it to remember. I put 2 cups on the table. I poured water from the kettle. The air smelled like tea again. He wrapped his hands around the cup without drinking. I posted that thing, he whispered. The airport thing? I thought it was nothing. A joke. I wanted comments. I thought it made me interesting. He choked on the word and looked ashamed of the shape of his mouth. I took it down. Good, I said. He cleared his throat. I called Emma. I called Clara. I'm going to call Mr. Jensen. He tried to smile. He doesn't even have the internet. Call anyway, I said. He nodded. He looked at the box in the hall and then back at me. What now? He asked. Now we work, I said, quiet, long. He nodded. He took a sip of tea. He flinched. Hot, he said. It cools, I said. By noon, the house felt different. Not fixed, just pointed in a better direction. I put the all folder back in the box and shut the lid. I set the frame on top. I didn't turn it over. I knew what it said. The group chat pinged at 1. Mark, dinner tonight? My place. No phones. Emma will bring bread. Clara, I'll bring soup. I typed, I'll bring the box. I waited a beat. I typed, to keep it closed. 3 hearts came back. That was new. As the sun slid behind the roofs, I walked out to the porch. The wood felt smooth under my shoes. The air smelled like bread and cool dirt. A small bird landed on the rail and looked at me with one bright eye. I looked back. We didn't move. It flew away, quick and sure. I went inside, picked up the box, and felt its weight. It felt the same. I set it back down and turned off the light. The day had been plain, true. The rope held. And the beat in my chest kept time. Not anger, not glee. Something older, something patient. A drum in a far field, steady as steps. Soon there would be a last thing. Not loud, not cruel. A gift, unwrapped when the room was quiet enough to hear it. And when it opened, they would remember. They would. 2 days later, the group chat buzzed again. Mark, Dad, can you cover the electric bill at the lake house? We're short. I typed nothing. Emma added, it's not much, just this one time. I set the phone down. My tea cooled beside me, untouched. The wood grain on the table swam. I walked into the study, unlocked the drawer, and pulled the box out again. I set it on the desk and opened the lid. The folder still lay inside, neat. On top of them sat the framed screenshot, face down. I flipped it over. The words glared. Try Uber. Plan better. My own. No worries. I stared until the letters blurred. Then I placed the frame upright on the desk, facing the room. Let it watch. Let it remind me. That evening, I stepped outside to water the lawn. A car slowed at the curb. A window rolled down. A young man leaned out, phone in hand. Hey, you're the Uber dad, right? He called, grinning. My hand froze on the hose. He lifted his phone. Say hi. My buddies won't believe it. I turned the hose off, set it down, and walked back inside. The door clicked shut behind me. My heart beat like a hammer against wood. The noise had spread beyond family. It had turned into a joke the whole town thought they could share. I went into the study, sat at the desk, and whispered to the box. Soon. Saturday brought Clara again. She carried groceries and set them on the counter. People are talking, she said softly. I know, I said. They think it's funny, she said. They don't see you. They see the joke. I poured her a glass of water. She sipped, eyes wet. Do you have to? She trailed off, looking toward the study. Yes, I said. She nodded once, tight. Then do it loud enough they can't laugh after. She hugged me before leaving. She smelled like soap and paper. On Sunday, Emma texted, brunch at ours again. Come, don't sulk. I went. The house was louder than before. Friends were there too. Laughter rolled from the kitchen to the deck. Phones glowed in every hand. Mark spotted me and grinned. There he is, the legend himself. The Uberman. One of his friends laughed. Emma held up her phone. Dad, smile. People love when you play along. I looked at her. My face didn't move. The room hushed, then someone laughed nervously, filling the silence. Mark clapped me on the back. Lighten up, Dad. It's just fun. Fun, I repeated. The word tasted like ash. During brunch, they raised a toast. "To Dad," Emma said, giggling, "who can't plan a ride but can always pay the bill." Glasses clinked. I set my fork down. My chest was steady, but my hands shook. "Excuse me," I said, and rose. I walked out, leaving food half-eaten. Behind me, voices whispered. A few chuckled. No one followed. At home, I opened the box again. I spread the papers on the desk. Receipts in long lines. Bills stamped, paid. Tuition slips with their names. Rent checks with my signature. On top, my wife's letter. "If they forget who you are, remind them. If they mock, stay steady. One day, the truth will be the gift." I placed the framed screenshot beside it. Their words. My silence. The next week, Mark showed up unannounced. He carried a small camera. "What's that?" I asked. "Starting a vlog," he said. "People want content." "Content," I repeated. "Yeah, family stuff. Real-life moments. You'd be great in it, Dad. The old-school angle. Say something wise, people love that." "No," I said. He frowned. "Don't be stubborn. This could help everyone. Ads, sponsors. You don't even have to do much. Just be yourself. The guy who takes everything." I closed the door halfway. "No." He stared, mouth tight. "You'll regret it," he muttered, and left. I leaned against the door, my hand on the knob. The quiet inside the house felt heavy, almost alive. That Friday, Clara called. "They're planning something for Sunday," she whispered. "What?" I asked. "A skit about the airport. They want to reenact it, with you." The air in my chest froze. "Who told you?" "Emma bragged about it, said they'd go viral." I closed my eyes. "Thank you." "Dad," she said, voice trembling, "don't let them do it." "I won't," I said. I set the phone down. The study waited. The box waited. The gift waited. Sunday arrived gray and cold. I dressed in my best shirt. I polished my shoes. I carried the box from the study to the hallway and set it by the door. At 5, Mark's car pulled up. Emma's too. Laughter carried up the drive. I opened the door before they knocked. "Come in," I said. They spilled into the house, still chuckling. Mark carried a small tripod. Emma clutched her phone. "We'll set up here," Mark said, pointing to the living room. "No," I said. They blinked. "What?" Emma asked. "No," I repeated. My voice was calm. The laughter faltered. Mark frowned. "Dad, don't make it weird. This is for fun." "No," I said again. The words sat in the air like a stone. Emma's smile wilted. Mark shifted his weight. "Then what are we doing?" I pointed to the table. "Sit." They hesitated, then obeyed. Clara arrived last, quiet. She sat near me. I carried the box to the table and set it down. The wood thudded heavy. I opened the lid. The papers lay inside, neat, waiting. The frame sat on top, face down. I flipped it over. Their words stared back. Emma gasped. Mark's jaw tightened. "This is what you wrote," I said. My voice didn't rise. "This is who you decided I am." Silence pressed against the walls. Clara whispered, "Dad," but I lifted a hand, gentle. I placed the first receipt on the table, then another. Mortgage, tuition, rent, insurance, surgery, everyone with my name. Emma covered her mouth. Her eyes filled. Mark shook his head. This is old. It doesn't matter." I laid one more paper on the stack. Fresh, dated last week, paid in full. His lake house electric bill. "It matters," I said. The clock ticked loud in the kitchen. The rain tapped at the windows. I reached into the box and pulled the last folder free. I set it in the center, my wife's handwriting on the cover, "For the day they forget." I slid it forward. No one spoke. 2 days later, the group chat buzzed again. Mark, "Dad, can you cover the electric bill at the lake house? We're short." I typed nothing. Emma added, "It's not much. Just this one time." I set the phone down. My tea cooled beside me, untouched. The wood grain on the table swam. I walked into the study, unlocked the drawer, and pulled the box out again. I set it on the desk and opened the lid. The folder still lay inside, neat. On top of them sat the framed screenshot, face down. I flipped it over. The words glared. "Try Uber." Plan better. My own, no worries. I stared until the letters blurred. Then I placed the frame upright on the desk, facing the room, let it watch, let it remind me. That evening, I stepped outside to water the lawn. A car slowed at the curb. A window rolled down. A young man leaned out, phone in hand. "Hey, you're the Uber dad, right?" he called, grinning. My hand froze on the hose. He lifted his phone. "Say hi, my buddies won't believe it." I turned the hose off, set it down, and walked back inside. The door clicked shut behind me. My heart beat like a hammer against wood. The noise had spread beyond family. It had turned into a joke the whole town thought they could share. I went into the study, sat at the desk, and whispered to the box, "Soon." Saturday brought Clara again. She carried groceries and set them on the counter. "People are talking," she said softly. "I know," I said. "They think it's funny," she said. "They don't see you. They see the joke." I poured her a glass of water. She sipped, eyes wet. "Do you have to?" She trailed off, looking toward the study. "Yes," I said. She nodded once, tight. "Then do it loud enough they can't laugh after." She hugged me before leaving. She smelled like soap and paper. On Sunday, Emma texted, "Brunch at ours again. Come, don't sulk." I went. The house was louder than before. Friends were there too. Laughter rolled from the kitchen to the deck. Phones glowed in every hand. Mark spotted me and grinned. "There he is, the legend himself." The Uberman. One of his friends laughed. Emma held up her phone. "Dad, smile. People love when you play along." I looked at her. My face didn't move. The room hushed. Then someone laughed nervously, filling the silence. Mark clapped me on the back. "Lighten up, Dad. It's just fun." "Fun," I repeated. The word tasted like ash. During brunch, they raised a toast. "To Dad," Emma said, giggling, "who can't plan a ride but can always pay the bill." Glasses clinked. I set my fork down. My chest was steady, but my hands shook. "Excuse me," I said, and rose. I walked out, leaving food half-eaten. Behind me, voices whispered. A few chuckled. No one followed. At home, I opened the box again. I spread the papers on the desk. Receipts in long lines. Bills stamped paid. Tuition slips with their names. Rent checks with my signature. On top, my wife's letter. "If they forget who you are, remind them. If they mock, stay steady. One day, the truth will be the gift." I placed the framed screenshot beside it, their words. My silence. The next week, Mark showed up unannounced. He carried a small camera. "What's that?" I asked. "Starting a vlog," he said. "People want content." "Content," I repeated. "Yeah, family stuff. Real-life moments. You'd be great in it, Dad. The old-school angle. Say something wise. People love that." "No," I said. He frowned. "Don't be stubborn. This could help everyone. Ads, sponsors. You don't even have to do much. Just be yourself. The guy who takes everything." I closed the door halfway. "No." He stared, mouth tight. "You'll regret it," he muttered and left. I leaned against the door, my hand on the knob. The quiet inside the house felt heavy, almost alive. That Friday, Claire called. "They're planning something for Sunday," she whispered. "What?" I asked. "A skit about the airport. They want to reenact it. With you." The air in my chest froze. "Who told you?" "Emma bragged about it. Said they'd go viral." I closed my eyes. "Thank you." "Dad," she said, voice trembling, "don't let them do it." "I won't," I said. I set the phone down. The study waited. The box waited. The gift waited. Sunday arrived gray and cold. I dressed in my best shirt. I polished my shoes. I carried the box from the study to the hallway and set it by the door. At 5, Mark's car pulled up. Emma's too. Laughter carried up the drive. I opened the door before they knocked. "Come in," I said. They spilled into the house, still chuckling. Mark carried a small tripod. Emma clutched her phone. "We'll set up here," Mark said, pointing to the living room. "No," I said. They blinked. "What?" Emma asked. "No," I repeated. My voice was calm. The laughter faltered. Mark frowned. Dad, don't make it weird. This is for fun. No, I said again. The words sat in the air like a stone. Emma's smile wilted. Mark shifted his weight. Then what are we doing? I pointed to the table. Sit. They hesitated, then obeyed. Clara arrived last, quiet. She sat near me. I carried the box to the table and set it down. The wood thudded heavy. I opened the lid. The papers lay inside, neat, waiting. The frame sat on top, face down. I flipped it over. Their words stared back. Emma gasped. Mark's jaw tightened. This is what you wrote, I said. My voice didn't rise. This is who you decided I am. Silence pressed against the walls. Clara whispered, Dad, but I lifted a hand, gentle. I placed the first receipt on the table, then another, mortgage, tuition, rent, insurance, surgery, every one with my name. Emma covered her mouth, her eyes filled. Mark shook his head. This is old, it doesn't matter. I laid one more paper on the stack, fresh, dated last week, paid in full, his lake house electric bill. It matters, I said. The clock ticked loud in the kitchen. The rain tapped at the windows. I reached into the box and pulled the last folder free. I set it in the center, my wife's handwriting on the cover. For the day they forget. I slid it forward. No one spoke. Mark stared at the folder like it might bite. Emma folded her hands and kept her eyes on the table. Clara breathed slow, like she was bracing for a wave. I opened the cover and took the first page. My wife's handwriting filled the top inch. The rest was blank, waiting. Thomas, it began. If the room feels loud, use quiet things. I said it where they could see. The ink had faded a little at the edges. It was strong anyway. I placed the next page beside it. My writing, a list of small rules we'd used when the kids were little. Keep shoes by the door. No shouting at the table. Say sorry with your hands, not just your mouth. Emma touched the edge of that list with one finger. She didn't pull it closer. She didn't push it away. I slid out a thin stack and fanned it. Dates, receipts, not to shame, to remember. Mortgage, rent, braces, school, food, heat. Paid, paid, paid. Each one a small weight on a scale they hadn't seen before. Mark leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. His jaw worked. This is a setup, he muttered. No, I said. This is a table. He dropped his chin and met my eyes. Same difference. I didn't answer that. I only put one more paper down. The flight receipt from the trip home. The funeral bill for their mother's burial. The text printed in big letters, the one I had framed. Flight lands at 5 p.m. Can someone pick me up? Under it, their replies. Try Uber. Plan better. My own. No worries. Emma covered her face with both hands. A sound came out of her throat, small and rough. Clara put a palm between Emma's shoulder blades and held it there. She didn't rub. She just stayed. Mark stared at the frame and then away. His ears had gone red. He tapped one finger against his knee. Tap, tap, tap. Fast at first, then slower. Say something? He told me. It came out hard. I just did, I said. He slapped his palm on the table. The plates jumped. The plant in the middle quivered. Say something else. I will, I said. Not tonight. He narrowed his eyes. Why drag this out? I looked at the old ink on the page for my wife. Use quiet things. Because noise got us here, I said. Quiet will take us home. Emma dropped her hands. Her cheeks were wet. What do you want, Dad? She asked. Just say it and we'll do it. I want truth, I said. From you, to you, about me. Mark laughed once. The sound scraped. Truth. Great. Here's mine. I messed up. Happy? No, I said. That's a line. Truth has hands. Emma blinked. Hands? It picks up. It puts away. It fixes, I said. It takes the videos down. It knocks on Mr. Jensen's door and tells him the joke is over. It tells the church group. It brings soup without a camera. Emma nodded, eyes on her lap. Okay. Mark looked like he wanted to argue and couldn't find a sentence to start with. He shut his mouth and chewed the inside of his cheek. I closed the folder. I put the frame face down again. The room exhaled a long breath I hadn't heard it holding. Next Sunday, I said. Dinner here, 6 o'clock. No phones. Come early. Bring nothing. And what? Mark started. That's when you get your gift, I said. What gift? He asked. The real one, I said. He laughed without humor, I'm sure. Clara cleared her throat. We'll be here, she said, for herself and, I think, for the room. They stood to leave. Emma hugged me and didn't let go right away. Her hair smelled like apples. Mark held out his hand. I shook it. His palm was damp and cold. He squeezed too hard, like a man trying to prove he could still do it. When the door clicked shut behind them, the house settled back into itself. I put the papers away and closed the box. I washed the cups and turned them upside down to dry. The water ran from the rims in thin, clear lines. I went to bed and lay on my back with my hands on my chest. The ceiling wore a faint square of streetlight. The elm outside rubbed its leaves together like hands. In the morning the sky was pale and thin. I made eggs. I ate standing at the counter. The yolk broke and ran. I wiped it with a piece of bread. I cleaned the plate and set it in the rack to dry. The group chat pinged. Emma, video's gone. A minute later, I called Aunt May. I told her I was wrong. 2 minutes after that, I'm sorry. I typed, thank you. Nothing from Mark. I took the little frame off the desk and put it in a drawer. I didn't need to see the words. I knew them by heart. At noon, I walked to the copy shop. The bell clanged. The young man with the nose ring looked up and smiled a little. I've got that heavy paper you like, he said. I might not need it, I said. He lifted a shoulder. I kept it anyway. I bought a single sheet to make a clean list. Not the old one, a new one. Sunday, 6 chairs, 2 extra, just in case. Chicken. Bread. Water. Plant in the middle. Box on the chair by the door. Envelope on top. The real gift wrapped in plain paper, tucked under the box. I put the list in my pocket. It warmed with my body. On Wednesday, I trimmed the hedge again. The clippings fell in soft piles. Mr. Jensen came over with his rake and helped without being asked. Quiet week? He asked. Loud inside. Quiet out here, I said. He nodded like a man who knows both kinds. He pointed his chin at the road. Kids drove by last night, shouted something stupid. I pretended I didn't hear. I'm sorry, I said. It's air, he said. It blows past. We raked together for a while. The piles grew even. He slapped my shoulder before walking back to his yard. His palm was rough and warm. Thursday night, Clara and Cal came for tea. Cal brought a drawing of the elm. The trunk was thick, the leaves were scribbled, but you could tell it was the elm because he put the knot on the right side like real life. Good eye, I said. He grinned. I look, he said, and that was his whole speech. Emma dropped off soup on Friday. She didn't come in. She stood on the step with the container and said, no cameras. I see, I said. She looked down at the soup like it might tell her what to say. I told the cousin, she said, and the group. I told them I was wrong. They wrote, LOL, again. I left the chat. Good, I said. She nodded. Her lip trembled once. She bit it and it stopped. See you Sunday, she said. Saturday evening, Mark messaged, can I bring anything? I typed, no. He sent, okay, then, I'm sorry. He didn't dress it up, he didn't add a joke. The words stood there, plain and small and heavy. On Sunday morning, I went to the market early. The fish counter smelled like salt. The bread shelf was warm. The butcher wrapped a chicken and slid it to me across the glass. Good bird, he said. At home, I set the table the same way as before. Plates, forks, glasses. The purple plant in the center. It had lost 1 petal in the week. The rest stood brave. I put the box by the door with the envelope on top. I slid the brown wrapped gift under it and pressed it there with the heel of my hand as if the table were a chest and I was pushing a heartbeat back in. At 5:55, Clara and Cal arrived. Cal handed me a small rock from his pocket. It looks like a heart, he said. It didn't, but it did feel good in my palm. I put it on the sill where I keep small things that know my window. Emma came a minute later, hair damp, eyes clear. She set her phone face down on the dresser by the door and left it there. I'll forget it if I do that, she said. Good. At 6 sharp, Mark stood on the step. He didn't ring. He knocked with his knuckles, gentle, like a man who learned a new way to say hello. When I opened the door, he was holding nothing. His pockets were empty. His eyes were ringed, like he hadn't slept enough. He took off his shoes without being asked and lined them straight. We ate, we didn't rush. The food tasted like food, and not like a thing between other things. The forks clicked. The plant sat quiet. When the plates were pushed back, I stood, lifted the box, and set it in the center. I took the envelope from the top and held it in both hands for a moment before I tore the side. The paper made a soft sound like a bird wing. I pulled a letter out and unfolded it. My wife's handwriting again. Strong, steady. "Thomas," she wrote, "if they ever turn you into a punchline, give them a door. If they refuse to walk through, close it. If they reach for the knob, help them." I read it out loud. I let the words sit where we sat. I lifted the brown-wrapped gift from under the box and set it beside the plant. I glanced at Mark. He didn't crack a joke. He looked like a man at the edge of a lake, deciding if the cold would hurt worse than staying dry. "This," I said, tapping the gift, "is last." "What is it?" Cal asked. "Soft." "A thing that makes other things true," I said. Emma dabbed at her eye with a napkin. Clara had both hands around her glass, like it might float away if she didn't. I reached into the box and took out 2 folders. The names on the tabs were not Emma and not Mark. They were words I had written on the new, heavy paper. House and fund. I set house in front of Clara and fund in front of Cal. Mark put his hands flat on the table, like he needed to feel something solid. "For the house," I said, nodding to my sister, "if I go, this place waits. It does not sell. It does not film. It holds for the boy and for you to keep warm. That was decided this week. The papers are signed." Clara's mouth opened and then covered itself. She blinked hard. Her lips moved without sound. She reached across the table with her left hand and found my wrist. She squeezed once. "For the fund," I said to Cal, "the key you wear has a friend now." I slid a small card from the folder and set it by his plate. His name, a number. A simple rule: build, not break. He nodded like he understood most of it and would understand the rest later when it mattered. Emma looked at Mark, then at me. "What about us?" she asked. Not greedy, just lost. "You," I said, "get a rule." I picked up a small, thin card from the box and set it between them. On it, in my hand, I had written one line, "No joke that takes a person apart." Emma let out a breath she may have been holding since the airport. "I can do that," she whispered. Mark's eyes glistened. He looked down at the card and then up at me and then at his hands. He nodded once. Slow. "We're not finished," I said. Mark breathed out hard through his nose. He smiled a little, and it wasn't a grin. "Figured?" I pulled a flat holder from the box and slid it open. Inside lay 3 printed screenshots. Not the airport ones. These were new. One from Emma's page with "I was wrong" under a plain photo of her hands. One from Mark's feed. Nothing flashy, just words in black on white that said, "I used my father for laughs." I'm sorry, I took it all down. The third was a message to the cousin group. "Remove the posts. This is not content, this is a person." "I printed them," I said, "so you can't forget you did them." Emma let out a small sound that learned to be a laugh halfway and changed its mind. "I won't." Mark rubbed his jaw. "I didn't post that yet," he said, pointing at the black on white. He looked at me. "I will." "When?" I asked. "After dessert," he said. His mouth twitched. "Before dishes." I nodded. It was the right order. I put the screenshots away. I took the brown-wrapped gift and pulled the string. The paper fell open. Inside lay a framed photo and a small stack of sealed envelopes tied with thread. The photo was simple. The pickup lanes at the airport. The sign that says arrivals. Me, in the corner of the frame, hand on my bag, looking down at my phone. A stranger had taken it for me the day after brunch. At the same hour my flight had landed a week before. The light was the same. The lane shiny with old rain, brake lights glowing like coals. The photo held the silence of a moment that shaped other moments. Emma swallowed. "Dad." I placed the photo in the center of the table, leaning it against the plant. "We will look at this when we forget to be gentle," I said. "We will put it away when we remember. Then we will bring it back when we forget again. That is how remembering works." I slid the stack of sealed envelopes toward Mark. On top, one in my wife's hand. "For my son, if he tries to make a show out of grief." Under that, in my hand, for the day you call and I don't answer. Then, for when you are a father and your child forgets, you are whole. And one last one, blank. What's the blank one for? He asked. For you to write, I said. When you know what to say next. His lips trembled. He pressed them together and they stopped. He took the stack and held it like a book too dear to drop. I poured tea. The smell rose like a clean cloth. We drank while it was too hot because waiting felt like old habit and we wanted a new one. When the cups were empty, I stood and carried the photo to the hall. I hung it on a small nail by the door, not too high, not too low. The plant's purple sat on the table behind me like a small fire that does not burn the house. Mark took his phone from his pocket. He placed it face up on the table. His thumb hovered over the screen and then lowered. He wrote. He didn't show us. He didn't speak while he did it. He hit send. He put the phone face down again. There, he said. Emma reached for his hand and squeezed it. Good. Cal slid out of his chair. He padded to the photo and stood in front of it with his hands behind his back, like kids do in museums. He looked a long time. He nodded once, like he was telling the picture it could rest now. We ate dessert. It was simple. Store-bought pie. The crust broke into soft flakes. The filling was too sweet. We ate it anyway. After, Emma gathered plates. Clara washed. Mark dried. Cal stacked forks like small soldiers. I wiped the table with the lemon oil cloth. The wood shone again. The house smelled like a place people keep on purpose. When the sink ran clear and the counters were dry, we sat one more time with nothing in front of us. No plant, no box, no papers. Just our hands and the work they can do. Next Sunday? Emma asked. Yes, I said. Phones? Cal asked, trying a smile. Face down, I said. Mark stood. He came around the table and put his hand on my shoulder. Not a slap, not a squeeze that hurt, just his palm. Warm, heavy. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. At the door, he picked up his shoes and set them down again. He looked at the photo. He touched the frame with his finger like you might touch a name on a wall. He nodded. He walked out. Emma hugged me again. Clara kissed my cheek twice like she used to when she was small. Cal handed me the heart-shaped rock back, then took it again. I'll keep it warm, he said. Good, I said. When the door closed and the house went still, I carried the box back to the study. I set it on the desk. I put the letter back in the envelope and slid it inside. I closed the lid. The wood made that soft sound again, the one that feels like a book that knows you will open it again but not tonight. I went to the kitchen and set a pot of water on to boil. The flame whispered. I watched the surface tremble and then roll. I turned it off and poured. Through the hall, I could see the photo by the door, the pickup lane, the bag, the man with the phone, the space beside him where a car could have been. The house was quiet. The quiet was full. It wasn't a punishment. It was a room. I sat and let the cup warm my fingers. The ring it left on the table looked like a small moon. The mark would fade. Some don't. I could live with both. Outside, a car passed and did not stop. The elm hissed. The clock ticked. Inside, the beat in my chest kept time. Not anger, not glee, something older, something patient. Soon, the last gift would open. When it did, there would be no shouting. Only a door. And someone, I thought, would walk through. Sunday morning, I sent one last message to the family chat. Flight lands at 5. Can someone pick me up? This time, the answers came quick. Emma wrote, We're coming. Mark said, On my way. And Clara added, We'll be there early. I slipped the phone in my pocket, lifted the box, and walked out the door. The airport smelled like coffee and tired luggage. The board clicked with arrivals. Families crowded the rails with balloons and flowers. I stood under the big arrivals sign with Clara and Cal. Mr. Jensen waited too, straight in his best coat. 2 church helpers stood beside a covered plaque on the wall. A small camera sat low, quiet, just to record. At 4:55, Emma and Mark hurried up the ramp, breathing heavy, no phones in their hands. Emma touched my arm. We're here. Mark gave a short nod. Good, I said. Stay with me. At 5 sharp, I pulled the tape and slid the brass cover off the plaque. The light from the ceiling made the letters shine. Evelyn's Arrivals. No one waits alone. It said rides would be offered, in her name, for anyone left standing without family. The church would keep the list. If no one could drive, the fund would cover the fare. If many showed up, the fund would only grow. A hush spread through the crowd. One of the helpers held up little cards with the number on them. Mr. Jensen pulled out his handkerchief and pretended it was just for his nose. A reporter leaned close. Sir, why this? I looked at the plaque. Because some people land to silence, I said. They shouldn't. This is how we get home. I set the box on the table and unwrapped the last brown package. Inside was a binder, 2 envelopes, and a small tin of keys. I pushed the keys aside and opened the binder. The house stays with Claire and Cal, I told them. It can't be sold. It can't be filmed. It's just for living. Cal's schooling is already safe, locked and waiting. And for you two, I looked at Mark and Emma. Your part comes if you show up. 1 ride a week. For a year. Open doors for strangers, not just yourselves. If you do it, the gift is yours. If you don't, it goes back into the rides. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. Dad? Mark blinked hard. You're giving us tasks? I'm giving you a door, I said. You can walk through or you can let it close. Emma nodded fast, eyes shining. I'll walk. Mark's throat bobbed. He gave 1 sharp nod too. I handed them the envelopes. From your mother. Emma's note said, if you ever forget, use your hands. Soup counts. Rides count. Showing up counts. Mark said, if you want to be seen, open a car door for someone who is alone. Then do it again. Their shoulders dropped, lighter now that the weight was out in the open. The reporter lifted her mic. Anything else you'd like to say? I pulled out my phone. My thumbs didn't shake this time. In the family chat, I wrote 1 line. Thanks for picking me up. Then I slid the phone away and pointed at the plaque. This is the last gift, I said. Not money, not clips. A rule, a ride, a way to make sorry real. The doors opened. A woman in a blue coat came through, small suitcase bumping her ankle. She looked around, lost. Mr. Jensen stepped forward in his volunteer badge. Do you need a ride? Her eyes filled. I do. Before anyone could tell him, Mark took her bag. Emma held the car door open. Clara pressed the first ride card into her hand. And Cal, standing on his toes, pointed at the plaque so she'd see the words shining bigger than all of ours. Welcome. I closed the box and tucked it under my arm. The brass cover glinted in my hand. Phones were out everywhere, but none pointed at me. They pointed at the plaque, at the open door, at the ride beginning. They had once handed me a coffin. Now I handed them a way home. I watched my son hold the door and not pose for any camera. I watched my daughter sit in the back to keep the woman company. I watched the car roll away slow and steady into the line of evening lights. The noise inside me went quiet. The rope held. That was enough.
If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe and join Taste of Revenge family, and share your impressions of the story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on one of the boxes on the right. Thank you for watching to the end.